What is happening, everybody? John Denton here. Welcome to a new show on the channel, the Big Review Show.
Oh my god! Okay, it's happening!
Every single week going to be recapping some of the music that I've reacted to on the channel and plenty of the music and albums that I haven't reacted to on the channel, giving thoughts, giving some ideas, and giving some scores. This week we're going to be talking about Joji's Nectar, which of course the reaction is on the channel, but also Headie One, recap of the MGK album, Action Bronson, Spillage Village, and of course Benny the Butcher. You can scroll along the bottom. If you're on your phone, use your finger. If you're on desktop, you can just scroll along and it's all segmented with timestamps. The timestamps are in the description. So if you don't care about one album, you want to listen to another album, it's all there. So I think we'll kick things off, guys, with this Joji album. And like I said in the title of the video, Joji, he dropped a classic. I talked about on the reaction, right? That this felt like an artist coming out of being like a YouTuber turned musician into just a musician, and not only that, a musician capable of seriously troubling the charts. This delicate, fragile record, the beautiful tone of his voice, like he doesn't have some big booming voice or anything like that, but that doesn't matter, he has the fragility. And on some of these tracks, even the opening track, Ooh, You, it's hard for me to say that in my accent, but also we've got some of the singles that came out. Daylight, I think, with Diplo works a lot better without the music video, although I did like the music video. Obviously Run, an absolute stunner. You've got Gimme Love with the kind of Postal Service vibes. Sanctuary's a great track, and even things like Pretty Boy, which is a bit memey, I guess you could say, with Little Yachty on it, or Little Yachty as I call him. It actually works pretty well. So I think it's one of those albums, and I think I said this on the reaction, and I'm only going to double down on it, that for certain people, whether they're huge Joji fans already or they've just discovered him, this will be like their favourite album of 2020, if not their favourite album of the last few years. The words that he says, the tone that he uses, the messages that he's sending will hit for certain people so deeply, will cut through to their bones, and they will love it. And what an absolute treat to see an artist that was a YouTuber, that was a content creator doing all these different types of things, truly blossom, and I think that's the word here, guys, truly blossom into, you know, a top level recording artist and songwriter, and somebody who I have high hopes is only going to go on to create better music, like a song like Run. I mean, that could be from any era, from like the 70s until now, an absolute monster of a rock ballad. I'd like to hear more of that from Joji as well, but of course, give me those gentle tracks as well. So I'm going to stick with my 9 out of 10 rating that I believe I gave it on a reaction. Those first reaction scores, of course, they're in the moment, right? So they may stay, I may change my mind as I listen to the records more. Favorite track for me, it's still got to be Run, but you, I can't say it, would probably run that one close. All right, next up, it's a big album for the UK scene. It's Headie One, Edna, and I've had a ton of requests to react to this album, a ton of requests to talk about this album. Ultimately, I think this Headie One record is a big moment for UK drill. Now, it's not an entirely UK drill album, but most of it. And it's a long album, it's a 20-track album, and it feels like a real breakout moment for the scene, especially as it's got #1 in the UK. Now, you must remember, like, drill is this incredibly maligned genre of music, maligned in the press, maligned on YouTube, you know, artists getting their videos taken down off YouTube. To see him ascend to this level of not only like king of drill, I've called him that in the past. I mean, I'm not even saying he's the best drill artist. That's a different conversation, and probably one best left to Levi Walks, etc. But to see him ascend to somebody who could potentially go and take this sound to America. And when I say this sound, I'm not just talking about the beats. The beats have travelled to America, right? We know that. Pop Smoke, rest in peace. 5-0 Foreign, even Drake, right? But the sound, like Headie One's accent is crazy. It's even crazy for English people, right? It's still an intense accent. It's very, very specific to London. To take that energy and to make it global, when you've got a Future on the album, when you've got Drake, obviously, on the album, and then some of the other big features on this record, I think that he does a great job of sort of giving this album status, right? And I think that that's been backed up by the reception it's had. Honestly, for me personally, 20 tracks, an hour long of drill beats is a bit much for my personal tastes to listen to back to back to back to back to back. But saying that, the variety of sound, the variety of energy on this record is very impressive. You start off with, you know, a couple of sort of more classic drill cuts and Teach Me in Psalm 35, and you're thinking, wow, can I do 20 tracks of this? I'm thinking that. Not that I don't like those tracks, and there's bars in there for sure. Psalm 35 being particularly obviously about his relationship with his mother, Edna, who's passed, and this is kind of dedicated to her, obviously. But then we go straight into a track with M. Huncho, which has a slightly different type of vibe. Also has the lyric, and I've written it down, Black Lives Matter, but in the hood this white means power, which is a killer line, and kind of sets up the rest of the record, because it does jump between subject matters whilst maintaining that kind of drill essence. And then as the album moves on, you got like an Ain't It Different, which we've heard, which has that slightly more mainstream sound. Obviously with the Crazy Town sample, I know it's a Red Hot Chili Peppers sample, but I'm pretty sure that track samples the Crazy Town version, especially as there's loads of butterflies in the video. So all the people in the comments on my reaction to that. You've got Princess Cuts with Young T and Bugsy, a couple of superstars that gives a kind of softer energy. Young Ad's on there, and then you bring in the big guns with the track with Future, the track with Drake, which we've heard of course, and then Try Me with Skepta, which for me is the standout track on the record, man. Like, you listen to that beat for starters. So I went and checked out who did the beat, and it was Gotti on them, who actually did Man's Not Hot beat, the Let's Lurk beat. So yeah, very familiar sound to anybody who's ever heard Man's Not Hot, which is pretty much everybody at that point. But yeah, this beat, honestly, it sounds like a chipmunk being drowned or something and then put back through some sort of vocoder. Mental beat. Headie flows on it nicely, and then Skepta comes in and just marches through this beat, not with a drill flow at all, with a fucking alpha Skepta flow, marching through it like Conor McGregor. Honestly, absolutely spins this track. Killer track. Absolute monster of a track. And then we go straight into like more of a trap track afterwards, which is interesting, in Fuck You Pay Me. We've got Kenny Beats production, Ivorian Dolt on there doing their thing, but also what's interesting about this one, is bad as it is to say, is I could see that one doing well on TikTok, just because it has that Fuck You Pay Me hook, and I can imagine some of the worst people in the world doing some terrible dance and ending with Fuck You Pay Me and them having like money in their hand or something. You know what I'm talking about. It will be awful, but it may get some streams anyone going Headie's way. So, you know, you have to take the rough with the smooth. Maybe I'll do a video about what I think about TikTok very soon. Let me know in the comments. Only track I wasn't massively keen on was the kind of like Afro beat R&B vibe of You Me. And yeah, maybe the album's a little bit long. Some questions on the mix. Headie's vocal extremely loud throughout the whole thing, which is great because, you know, he's spitting throughout the whole thing. You listen, there's bars and bars and bars and bars and bars through this record. He really is a very high level. And if you can't understand his accent, if you're American watching this, just bring up the fucking lyrics as you listen to it, and it will give you a completely different appreciation of what's going on. And also, if some of the slang doesn't make sense, look it up. Honestly, I get annoyed when people go, I can't understand the accent, and they don't. It's not exactly hard to find out what the man's saying. For me, I'm going to give a 7 out of 10 to this record. It is a little bit bloated. Not every track hits in the same way, and while I do think it's definitely a moment for drill and an exciting moment with some excellent tracks on there, Try Me being probably the strongest, if not yet, definitely the strongest. I still think a strong 7 out of 10. And it'd be interesting to see where Headie goes from here, because he's been pretty prolific in terms of the amount of music that he's released, and now he has this opportunity to kind of go to another level. Does he maintain that drill sound? I'm sure he does. Does he try some different sounds? Does he work with some different artists? And him, rising tide lifts all ships, right? So him doing well in this capacity is just going to bring up some of the other drill artists. I expect big things with Dutch Valley at the end of 2020, 2021, for example. But plenty of others too. Okay, next one I'm going to talk about is Spillage Village's record, Spilligion. I guess that's how you say it. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, really pleasant listen. I actually did this one on stream on the Twitch channel. There's a link down in the description. Please go and follow there. Not only are you getting Music Mondays, where I'll do probably a live album reaction every single Monday night to something that's not necessarily going to make it to the main channel in terms of reaction. All of those get cut and put up on the Patreon as well, but also we'll be checking out other music. There'll be streams throughout the week and stuff like that, and I'm actually really enjoying it. And Twitch, by the way, is looking after content creators who are working in and around music like myself, whereas YouTube is kind of throwing us out with the trash. But yeah, this for me just another showcase for the ability of JID as a rapper who can move into kind of like a melodic tone as well. A real superstar, and I'm very excited for what he puts out as his next solo project. I really hope that it is a special moment, because he has the potential to really kind of take the torch for sort of commercially viable but very, very, very high level rappers, MCs, artists as we move into the next decade. which is exactly where we are. But also everybody kind of kills it on this record. It's not like an absolute life changer, but when you've got tracks like Baptize, when you've got tracks like End of Days, you tracks like the outstanding Happy, which I absolutely love, you can't really go wrong. It's a very uplifting record. Obviously, if you could dive into the lyrics a little bit more, there's a lot about religion, there's a lot about subversion of religion, there's some interesting stuff going on there. But take a step back and you have elements, obviously, of hip-hop, you have elements of kind of psychedelic funk, you have elements of like folk music, there's some Mumford & Sons sounding stuff in there as well. All the influences, all the instrumentation is so rich. So while it's not something that I'll necessarily listen to front to back over and over and over again, more probably just picking out songs for the playlist like Happy, for example, or Baptize, you have to give a shout out to everybody involved for creating something which is original is not really the word because the influences are so clear, but certainly unique, especially in 2020, especially as supposedly rap music is going in a certain direction, trap music is going in a certain direction, you know, simple and more of this Fisher-Price kind of melodic schemes, very little lyrics. To have something like Spillage Village come out and just do something, sort of earthy, hippie, folksy type of rap music, it's fascinating. So I'll probably drop an 8 out of 10. It's been a good few weeks of music. I'll probably drop an 8 out of 10 on this record, to be honest. Not necessarily one I'm going to play a lot, but I think every single time that I do, or every single time I check out a track from it, it's going to put me in a pleasant mood. And also the depth of the production is so good in the engineering that if you listen, for example, on a good sound system with good hi-fi speakers, on a good car sound system, you're going to appreciate different things every single time. And there's a lot to be said for that. So yeah, shout out to everybody involved in that record. Enjoyed it a lot. Okay, let's talk some MGK. Let's talk some Machine Gun Kelly. I listened to this record, Tiggs and My Downfall, and I really enjoyed it. It really took me by surprise. And one of the things about doing a first reaction is that surprise factors into the reaction, right? I was very surprised at his ability to play, his ability to sing, his ability to construct pop-punk songs. I didn't know he had it in his locker. And that surprise excited me, and you can see that in a reaction. Going back through the record, would I say I'd enjoyed it quite as much on future listens? Probably not. Second half of the record I do think does drop off quite a lot, and while there's some little moments in there and Travis Barker's drumming throughout is outstanding, I really do think that it's quite a front-loaded record, and there's nothing wrong with that. That comes from the CD era as well, where you want to get all your best songs at the beginning. People tell me that there's tracks on the bonus version of this record which should have made it onto the album as well, so some slightly strange choices there. But I do think title track, I do think Bloody Valentine, I do think, is it Forget You or Forget Me? Forget You, I forget. With Halsey, all really good, solid pop-punk songs. I personally really like the engineering on this record. I think that it sounds great. I think that it sounds rich. If you go back and listen to pop-punk records from, the mid-90s onwards, and I count bands like NoFX, Rancid, Lagwagon in that field, obviously it sounds much thinner. A combination of budget and software and just what was going on at the time in terms of production. But it's not going to change the world, and people I've heard, plenty of people have called this record generic, and I go, yeah, it's a genre record, right? Of course it's generic. It's not hugely original. It is reminiscent of the music that a lot of people liked. But like I say, more that kind of richer pop-punk era from Blink-182, Sum 41 onwards, rather than the really kind of raw stuff from before that. But I can't really fault it, because it set out to achieve something, and I think it achieved it very well. And bringing in Travis Barker to work on it, I know Travis Barker's worked on some dodgy music in the past, but there's no denying his ability as a drummer. Just watch that Post Malone Nirvana thing that happened over lockdown. His drumming on that, ridiculous. And I can't go wrong with some of those tracks. Yeah, I'd probably, in retrospect, drop my score down to a 7 for that record. But anytime that comes on in the car, anytime that comes on in the playlist, I'm going to enjoy listening to it. And I personally hope that Machine Gun Kelly kind of pursues the rock music vibe a little bit, because the worst tracks on this album are the ones where the trap beats come in and it kind of like has essence of the music that he was working on in the past, and I don't think it needs it. I don't think trap beats work with pop punk. I don't think that rattling hi-hat works when next to Travis Barker on a real drum kit. Right, a quick one for only for Dolphins, Action Bronson, luxury music. The quality of the beat selection on this album, absolutely delightful throughout. And while I don't think it quite hangs with the heavyweights of hip-hop that have come out this year, and there's been some big albums, it almost feels like sort of Michelin-starred rap music. It's music all about flavour, about texture, about moments. I love all the kind of 80s references in the titles, very much going to appeal to somebody of my age. I love the fact that Action Bronson himself is currently from £375 down to around £250, looking in the shape of his life. Obviously, what an inspiration to see that work ethic. And he's a guy that seemingly, when he's motivated like this, it comes through in his music. I also like the fact that he's not interested in compromising. Somebody who is more of a like casual hip-hop fan, more of a casual trap fan, or a casual music fan probably won't get a huge deal out of this record, especially if you've not got your ear tuned in for lyrics, or you're not going to enjoy that kind of like laid-back production that you get on a track like Vega, named after a Street Fighter character as well. With that piano, beautiful album. For me, an 8 out of 10. Not going to hang on it too long. Please do go and check it out if you haven't already. And guys, we will wrap this one up with one of my favourite albums of 2020 so far. Just dropped the reaction the other day. But Benny the Butcher with Burden of Proof will be one of the rap albums of 2020. An absolute monster of a record. Brilliant production throughout from Hit Boy. I said it on my reaction. If you've watched that, I'm going to back up what I'm saying here. Talking of moments, and we talked about on the Headie One album review just now, this feels like a moment for Benny the Butcher as an artist. Not so much a moment for Griselda, but more a moment for him as an artist to ascend to the next level. You're seeing a lot of people with influence talking about this record, talking about how impressive this record is. It has a commercial sensibility that some of the other Griselda records don't. We just did the Conway album on Music Monday this week on stream, and I fucking loved it, but it's not very commercially appealing. It sounds like a horror movie, and I loved that. I love it, and I'll figure out which one of these two albums I actually like more later, and I'll talk more about the Conway album on next week's show, so I need to listen to it more than once. I've only heard it once. But Benny is someone, if you grew up listening to 50 Cent, if you grew up listening to Nas, if you grew up listening to even Lil Wayne, not he sounds like anything like Lil Wayne, but I'm talking about if you listen to the big hip-hop stars of the different eras at any point, and you listen to this record, I think you'd get something out of it. I think you would enjoy it. The track One Way Flight with Freddie Gibbs. How can Freddie Gibbs come in with a hook that killer, with a verse that funny? Apparently, after he finished, everybody just burst into laughter in the studio. That's what Hit Boy said on Twitter. I'm not surprised. But then you got these heartfelt moments in the Benny the Butcher record, like Trade It All, where he talks about losing his brother, about thank God I made it. Even Famous, where you just have these moments where, yeah, you're getting all of the hard bars through there, the cocaine bars, the gangster rap, but he opens up that bit. He opens up as well, talks about how for every one that made it, there's 100 or even 1,000,000 more in the trenches. I can't remember the exact lyric. Let's say 100 for now. You know, showing the kind of less glamorous, grimier, more dangerous side of living that life before he became a famous rapper, but still bringing that energy through and still not shying away from talking about the kind of glamorous side of having that money from that world as well. I think it's a classic. I love the production all the way through. My favourite track on it right now, subject to change, is One Way Flight, but you've got to give shouts out to Sly Green. You've got to give shouts out to Trade It All, Thank God I Made It, Warpaint, and even The Timeless Beat, which I still think is my least favourite track on the record. The Timeless Beat has grown on me. It is an unusual beat. I'm not sure why Hit Boy chose to construct a beat so unusually repetitive. But Lil Wayne and Big Sean both killed that track. All the features killed it on this record, in fact. Rick Ross killed Where Would I Go? So yeah, for me, a solid 9 out of 10 project. Will most likely, almost certainly make it into my top 10 of the year. Probably top 5 as well. We'll see come the end of the year. Hell, we may have a Cole, a Kendrick, a Drake, a Joey Badass, a JID before the end of this year. Never mind whatever else. So who knows? But for right now, one of my favourite rap projects of the year. Absolutely love it. Love it in the car, love it on the AirPods, love it on the headphones, passes all of the audio tests in my life, and yeah, solid 9 out of 10 for me. Guys, let me know in the comments what you think of this format. We'll work on this format, we'll tighten it, we'll fix it. Let me know what other albums I should be listening to that I can talk about. It doesn't have to be hip-hop, right? This is the beautiful thing about this. I will talk about other albums. In fact, next week I'll talk about the new Deftones album, which is a few weeks old, but I'll talk about that on next week's show. We had a lot to get through on this one. But it can be any genre as well. And there will be recaps of the ones that I've done on the channel as well. And look out for more kind of spoken conversational content on the channel. Reactions will still drive. The channel will be the main thing on the channel. That's not going to change anytime soon. But this is a great way of not only covering more music, but also a great way of putting out a video where I don't have to stress about it being blocked. Let me tell you, that's a nice thing. So yeah, let me know in the comments your thoughts, what I should review, what I should be listening to. Make sure you're following on Twitch as well and subscribe to this channel, of course, but I'm sure you are by now. And if not, what are you doing? Hit the subscribe button. We're over 200k now. Let me know your thoughts on the new mic. Hopefully it sounds good. And guys, I will catch you very, very, very soon. First episode of the big review show done. Latest. Peace.